Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Leah Kozach. I am the Board Vice President and Advocacy Chair for the Colorado Theater Guild. I am a shorter size white person with brown hair and silver in the streaked front, wearing a black outfit and a scarf around my neck. And I will turn it over to Mayor real quick, and she'll help introduce the rest of our panel, give a land acknowledgement, and then I'll get into the beginning of the presentation.
Do you mind, Leah, if we also, since we're an intimate group, if we also get the names of folks that are
Absolutely.
here? So we'll introduce ourselves and then we'll introduce yourself.
Yes.
I'm Mayor Trevathan, she, her, hers. I'm an actor, director, producer. I spent a lot of time in a closet in my basement doing voice acting. That's largely what I do these days. I am a white, I'll tell you my age. I'm almost 54, I'm not there yet, but I'm a 53-year-old white woman. I'm wearing a very fancy skirt, and I have glasses, gray hair. It is up off of my face. And rather than actually introduce each of our esteemed panelists, I would ask if we can just have you do your own introduction, who you are in the theater, your audio description, and anything else that feels important for people to know before we launch. Levi, would you start us?
Absolutely. Hi all, my name is Levi Franklin. I use he, they pronouns. I am a Latino man in my early 20s still. My audio description is, things I do in theater. I am the associate producer at a local theater company. I direct and am a teaching artist. My audio description is I have short brownish black hair, glasses, and a mustache with a rainbow shirt and turquoise, greenish. Teal, that's the color. Teal corduroy pants.
Hi, I'm Caden Cazzo. I use he, him pronouns. I am sort of a theatrical everyman. I sort of mostly focus in acting and stage management, but I'm also an arts administrator, a fight choreographer, and a great many other things. I'm a white man of sort of average size and build. I have cool hair that's half green, half black on top. That's very short. I'm wearing a green striped shirt and some classic black pants. Yeah.
I'm Amelia. I'm a white woman. I'm 41 years old. I'm wearing a gold yellow sweater. My pronouns are she, her, by the way. I'm wearing blue jeans, a necklace. I have reddish brown hair. I'm an actor, acting coach. I own the Force Actor Studio. I work online. I'm also an intimacy director for theater, intimacy coordinator for film. And yeah, kind of like the rest of my panel, I do a little of other, here and there, teaching artists as well.
Thank you, panelists. Thanks, Leah. T. David, do you mind going next?
I'm T. David Rutherford. I'm a member of the Colorado Theater Guild Board, doing technical stuff here. I am he, him are my pronouns. Since they can't really see me, I'm not going to describe kind of what I do.
Okay.
But that's what I do.
Okay. One of the Kevins?
I'm full name Kevin Douglas. Pronouns are he, him, his. Visual description, I'm a tall 26-year-old male with brown pants and a blue t-shirt and a tan little jacket button-up thing. And I'm the executive director and producer at Two Cent Lion Theater Company. It's a queer theater company at the People's Building in Aurora. And I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy you're here too. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin!
I'm Kevin McGuire. I've taken some voice training from Mayor and done some stage combat with Amelia. I'm just an actor. I did do some tech a long time ago when I started taking theater stuff in college, but that was back when we had, our light boards were analog. And I'm wearing a green pullover and blue jeans. I'm 52.
And waving hello to the camera.
And
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just trying to learn different aspects of the craft.
Great. Terrific. Glad you're here. Thanks, Kevin. Can we go to the back row?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Jacob Welch. I'm the chair of the Department of Theater and Dance here at Metropolitan State University of Denver. I'm also I'm kind of retired now from lighting design, but I was a freelance lighting designer for about 22, 23 years around town, worked with about 40 different companies, everything from Fort Collins to Pagosa to Dillon to Breck to Creed. I am in my late 40s, bald, white beard, red Metro t-shirt, black pants, he, him, as far as pronouns go. I think that's everything.
I'm Megan Euler. I'm the production manager for the Department of Theater and Dance at Metro. Yes, thank you. I am also a stage manager, event manager, all-around event guru, I guess. I am in my mid-50s. I have dark and gray, very curly hair, and I'm wearing a white and gray plaid shirt with a pair of jeans.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Is it Ronan in the
Yeah.
right there? Kind of backlit. Hi.
Yeah, okay, hi! So I missed it, I have to explain all the things. So my name is Ronan Viard, I'm a member of Colorado Theater Guild, and I'm also a performer here in Colorado, doing a show right now at the Firehouse Theater, The Girl on the Train, and doing my cabaret on Thursday, this Thursday at CU Boulder. I'm in my early 40s. And I'm wearing a black jacket, pink shirt, brown beige pants, and bluish shoes.
Nailed it. Thank you.
Okay.
How am I going to do myself?
Go on.
Just turn around.
All right, I'll just come over here.
This is you now. Yeah, you good.
Hi, my name is Brian Miller. I'm also on the board of directors of the Colorado Theater Guild, and I'm the videographer of this tonight. I am an active freelance theatrical set and lighting designer. I also work as the technical director for the Bob Lou Theater up in Fort Collins, and I teach here in this building at Community College of Denver. And I teach stagecraft kinds of things and design, so I have fun with that. It's great working with kids. I am 66 years old. I am originally from the East Coast. What else do I tell them about
I think
myself?
that's good. That's
All
a
right,
start.
that's
a
all I'm going to
start.
say.
Yeah, great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Great to hear that we have such a diverse group in terms of what you do in the theater, and many of you do many things in the theater. Quickly, I mean, we're in this gorgeous theater, and as we all know, this has not always been here. Just a quick land acknowledgement. This building is on the traditional territories and ancestral homelands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho nations. It is not clear in this land acknowledgement, I'm looking at the website for Auraria Higher Education Center. I don't know if these lands were ceded or not, if they were given up willingly or not. So I will just put that out there, I have a question mark. It was also the site of trade hunting, gathering, and healing for many other Native nations, the Lakota, the Ute, the Kiowa, the Comanche, the Apache, the Shoshone, and others. I did not know that. I think how we will structure things today, particularly since we're a small group, is that Leah is going to give us an overview of some of the things that were promised in the marketing language for this about employee designation, reporting issues, that sort of thing. Leah, thank you, has taken on the responsibility of going over some of that. Then I have questions that are pitched to each of our individual panelists here. We'll see where we're at on the clock because we we want to have a bio break about midway through, then we'll come back and do questions from y'all if you have any, and if not, no pressure. I got more here. So that's the basic structure of what we're looking at. That said, I mean, we're a small and informal group, and so if at some point during this you have a really, pressing matter, please feel free. And if you have a pressing bladder, please feel free. I think to do that, let's see, Leva, you know this space well. Would you mind being our flight attendant, doing the dance of the hands of where people go?
Yeah, you would exit through the doors that you entered from, so towards the back of the theater, and then head right, head out the doors, and then turn right down the hall, past 2 studios, and then in front of the red giant MSU Denver studio door, turn right, and there's restrooms right there.
Thank you so much.
It's a lot of to the right, to the right, to the right, so you can't get too terribly lost, but we know there is a little bit of a loud element. And I also forgot, so my pronouns are my first name, Leah, they, and she, and I just turned 39 recently, so I'm in that, like, on that cusp, and I'm excited for it. So again, thank you all for being here, much appreciated. I am gonna go through and do a little disclaimer before we get into the presentation there, so David, if you could go to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So this event is being recorded and will be uploaded to the CTG YouTube page at a later point in time. For those who could not attend this evening, we will let people know when that is up there. We're not going to expect people to just refresh and hope to see it. We'll let people know. All information shared tonight comes from the lived experiences, resource gathering, and opinions of individuals in the shared space. This event and the speakers in attendance do not serve as legal counsel. We recommend you seek out an attorney or other experts for specific questions and resources regarding contracts, workplace safety, labor laws, etc. So the next slide. So I'm just going to give us a little bit of group acknowledgements and agreements. Again, it is a fairly casual group, so I'm going to trust everyone to also be comfortable with themselves, but this gives you kind of a template and an idea of like where our framework is coming from. So I start with, let someone share an entire thought or question before responding with a statement or question of your own. Allow for multiple ways of being here tonight. I know I certainly will be. We know some folks process information at different paces and in different ways. We offer folks the opportunity to verbalize, take notes, speak publicly or speak privately. No one way is better than another. Assume good intentions. We're all here to learn, we're all here to share. That's the framework we're coming from. Next slide, please. No one knows everything, but together we learn something. That's a big proponent of mine. No one is an expert on all of the things. We have areas where we can learn new information and examine biases in previously held information. All of us start from different frameworks of knowledge. At times, people may be speaking in draft. Please exercise active listening, offer folks space and grace tonight as we discuss things. And finally, be curious, not judgmental. And if there's anything else I offer for the group, if there's something you would like us to add into this, by all means verbalize it, and if not, then we'll move right along. Okay. All right, so the first area that I wanted to focus on from where we were talking earlier was this thing with workforce designation. So a lot of folks will want to work with people in the region and not exactly know which stipulation they have. They just know like they want to hire someone. So there's 3 major designations you want to be aware of. There's 1099 workers, core-to-core, and W-2. So a W-2 is an employee where you have payroll and benefits and set hours. You provide equipment for your workers. You create a workspace for them. 1099 is an independent contractor. Core-to-core also kind of falls into that category. But those folks are not paid benefits. They are not on a payroll system. It's usually a stipend or project to project. The IRS has a really great descriptor, compare and contrast table to help folks figure out who they want to designate their workers as. So in general, a lot of us here in theater land are independent contractors. Maybe the folks running a theater company depending on how they've set things up, are in the W-2 category. A lot of arts admins are, but not all. There are a lot of 1099 workers, so it's just very important that as you are, figuring out which contracts you offer, and when you start sending those tax documents out to people, that you know what you're doing. The last thing you want is to send or designate someone in the incorrect category. The IRS does not like that. It is not fair to the people you are working with. Do your due diligence, ask questions. We have a whole community here of people who've been producing for years, decades. And each group does it a little bit differently. So if, when in doubt, ask a trusted source. But I do offer, if you go, we'll be sending out a PowerPoint to anyone who was not able to attend and everyone who did register. You'll be able to see through that link how you can figure out the designations in a more comprehensive way. Next slide, please. So general COVID compliance, like that is the main thing that I am dealing with on a regular basis, checking in with places to make sure they have a plan of action. Are they doing regular testing? Do they have testing at auditions? Do they provide masks? Are they asking people to bring their own supplies? Do they have respirator boxes to help deal with air filtration? Again, we're not at the situation where we once were, where there were COVID mandates from the state or on the county level. But we advise overwhelmingly that you use your best judgment and you take care of your people. So it's very hard for some folks to self-advocate. I think it's gotten a little bit easier, but I know from experience, if an organization sets the template and does a lot of that back-end work, then the folks who are applying to work with you or audition for things, all of that, your attendees at your events, the information they have knowing that those things are in place, the less they have to ask. Same goes, with vaccinations. Like obviously each group has something different. If you're in an educational setting, you have very different rules of vaccinations than if you're not in an educational setting. But a number of theaters at this point are on a case-by-case basis indicating that they may or may not require COVID vaccinations or flu vaccinations or something as a means of public safety. There's the whole idea of illness, stay-at-home process. What once was is no more. We used to have a very different way of handling if folks had the colds or flu or anything else going on in rehearsal and during productions, like having understudies and all of that. But with things now, with making sure that folks are able to isolate as needed, we just do the best that we can with what we got. But the more preemptive work people can do and the safer it is, the less likelihood we have of especially respiratory illnesses, because we know that's a huge, huge problem. We recommend that you just stay up to date with any requirements from the state or your county level. Each one has something different. We just know that post-lockdown, a lot of the agency has gone back to individual businesses, organizations, producers, if you're an independent producer, as opposed to when we had the state mandate where it's like, that was it, all done, that's where we're at. So, again, check in with your peers if you're in a county. If you're not county-based, you can check the state levels and all of those things too. There's tons of great resources on public health and safety, but we don't have like a direct link to tell you like this is how you do your check boxes. Use your best judgment, be mindful of that, but the best thing we can do is acknowledge that we have a high volume of immune-compromised folks in our community, not just here, but around the country, around the world. So I make a point to do what I can to acknowledge the most vulnerable populations we have in our theater community and make it as safe and as comfortable for them as possible so they don't have to be the ones asking. Next slide, please. Very briefly, accommodations. The American Disabilities Act, I have a link up there that gives way more comprehensive information than I could, but it is just a baseline. Reporting, as we know, is not widely, it's tough. The best thing we can do is meet the needs of our most vulnerable folks. So that's an area of mine that I've been doing a deeper dive in. We know that there is a long history of needs not being met and discrimination despite the ADA being passed in the early 90s and all the work that was done in the 70s and 80s to get it to that point. There is still much to do. The best thing we can do is work with members of our community with those lived experiences, asking them what it is they need, not assuming what they need. The best example I could give is our wonderful friends at Family Theater Company. They've been doing this advocacy and education for decades, and things have been changing rapidly. There are requirements with websites now on the federal level and the state level to make sure that folks have access to information that is not word of mouth. So that is one of the things that we can acknowledge and do, is work with our folks who have been doing the work for a very long time, work in partnership with folks when you're having your auditions and having them listed, putting in information about the venue where your audition is going to be, having those accommodations there, having an accommodations person, either from your production team or if you're at a venue, making sure that there's a point of contact for anyone who's a patron, auditioner, a crew member, so that it's not purely for the benefit of any one group. We want theater to be as accessible as we can allow. Next slide, please. General workplace safety, you can go to the Workman's Comp website through the state of Colorado. They have some really great comprehensive information about how to file a complaint, what to understand from the worker standpoint and the employer standpoint. So that's been really fascinating, getting to know that a little bit more intimately if you're working with venue partners or if you are in charge of a venue. There's usually a couple folks who are responsible for making sure buildings are safe and workplaces are safe, but there are ways to make reports if there is, a very serious situation. One of the things that we are lucky to have here in Colorado is the Community Standards for Theater, the Colorado Standards for Theater. That is a basic guideline. It's a group of individuals who came together to come up with best practices for people to adopt at varying levels based off of their budgets and ability and knowledge. But there is not a reporting factor in that standards. This is where this comes in. So if there is something that needs reporting, you can go through this. For folks who want to be preemptive in their work, OSHA offers consultation to qualified businesses. We are lucky that ours is through Colorado State University. They have a group that can help provide that service. You just have to figure out if you are a qualifying member, and they will do it for free. So they can come to your venue, they can meet with your staff, they can meet with you as an individual if you're an independent producer, and answer some of those questions. But I have not had a chance to go through it myself yet as like a consultant, but it's great that we have that so that you're not necessarily going through OSHA to report. You can preemptively figure things out so that nothing has to be reported. Next slide, please. Pay transparency. Again, since we're doing this with and for Colorado folks, one of my favorite things that's happened in the last couple of years is the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act. That means that a lot of the barriers of access for folks to get information from employment is no more. We now have rules and stipulations that if you are posting a job, you need to include a pay stipend or a pay range, very clear to find. We know that in terms of audition and job posting, some folks are still getting into the swing and learning how to do that, but CTG is very clear that on our job posting site and in our community Facebook group where there's a lot of marketing and audition posts of that nature, that we require that. There are some gaps and loopholes in the current law that may not require everyone to explicitly post those things, but that is our best practice. So we encourage other producers, other theater companies, anyone who's going to be overseeing an audition or hiring process, that they do that. And the stark reality is that the vast majority of people want that. They don't want to have to come and ask you how much are they going to possibly get paid or have to wait to get to an interview stage to do that. Every state in this country is different, but Colorado and a number of other states are leading the charge on this to help other states in the country get on board with this. It is not a national mandate at this point, but there are other countries around the world that are unilaterally adopting it on a federal level. I believe it might be Scotland or England, don't quote me on that. But they did a huge study on generational expectations in the workplace, and they found that an overwhelming amount of Gen Z, millennial, and younger would not apply for a job if the pay was not listed. So I believe around half
Yay.
of the organizations in some of these countries are now at that point where they're doing that until the mandates come through. But that's just general practice. So like, I know it's hard to sometimes remember to put all these things in all the hiring notices and on websites and all the various job postings, but it does make a difference. People want this, people need this. So we just want to make sure that everyone who is looking to work with one another has what they need to do that effectively. So I've included 2 different links on there. There's the link for the actual law itself, and there's another link below that specifically addresses like when you're doing job postings and hiring practices. So we're not leaving people out in the wind trying to figure this out. There are resources on the state level to help you do that. And if you're going to be doing a volunteer post, that's fine. We encourage folks to just say, if you're unable to offer a stipend, that you indicate very clearly it's a volunteer ask to either work on a show, audition for a show, be a part of the show. We have a number of companies in our theater community that do that. They are all volunteer run, and they are all volunteer participation, and then we have folks who are in unions. So it runs the gamut. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to speak specifically about unions. I'm not in one. But there's a number of great resources on all of our various union websites on how to be in compliance with union rules if you're hiring folks on contracts or overwhelmingly in other parts. Next slide, please. And contracts. We're going to go off of the assumption that a lot of folks in our community don't have individual agents and managers negotiating their contracts for them. We're doing them on our own or maybe in consultation with someone. So the recommendation is, if given a contract, when given a contract, have another set of eyes on it. That could be a lawyer, it could be a trusted friend, it could be someone else, but someone who understands the wording of this and can be an objective party, because we know like emotions can get high when we're excited to work. It's great to have another person be your advocate and ask those questions, saying, hey, it looks like this is not clear language. So when you go back to them, ask them to clarify this. Or I did some math on this stipend and the amount of hours you're going to work and the days you're going to work and all that stuff. This doesn't really feel so good, so you need to go in and talk about that. The other thing with the contracts being, if additional duties are being asked of you along the way that were not originally in that contract, you can renegotiate. You can come back and say, great, I would love to help you in that capacity. We need to go over the contract and increase my stipend if I'm going to be doing those additional services. So that could be intimacy coordination, fight choreography, cultural consultation. Going in with the assumption that the person you're hiring is just going to do that for you, not great. So best to do that at the front end in your pre-production planning, in your budgeting, all of these things. Just think eons ahead if you can. But if something does come up, be the responsible party and acknowledge, like, we would like to ask you to serve in this capacity, and we will be able to offer you this much for that knowledge and that expertise you have. That's all people want, respect for what they know and what they can do. I have included a link there that'll be available for folks. It's for the Colorado Attorneys for the Arts. It's through the Colorado Business Committee of the Arts. It is a pro bono attorney service for qualified participants. So you would go through that website, you would put in a proposal asking for assistance, someone would get back to you. The example I can briefly give is someone was in a legal situation, didn't know what to do, didn't know their recourse, and I said, I'm not a lawyer, I can't tell you what to do, but I know that those folks can probably help you. And they did. They took on their case. They're now working on gathering a lot of information to then bring a civil case forward to help that person. But they didn't even know that that was something that was available to them. So it is for qualified folks in conjunction with the CBCA, it is an available resource. And there are a number of other states in the country that have a similar system. I know they have that in California, but we have Colorado Attorneys for the Arts to be able to do that. I can't speak highly enough of those folks. They're doing wonderful work to help folks who have limited income or don't feel, comfortable in certain situations with certain types of lawyers. They don't know what to do, but these are folks who specifically address things in the performing arts and creative communities. So that is my presentation. Thank you.
That's perfect, Leah. Thank you. I look forward to looking through the slide deck later. From an accessibility standpoint, will that go out as a PDF? I'm worried about being able to access the text in the hyperlinks.
Yes, I'm gonna fix it, because as of right now, like, there's a lot of gradient issues, so yes, there will be a PDF version, there will be a PowerPoint version with active links for people to choose, and some more some visual description, things to help it along so that it's not
Beautiful.
so text heavy for folks.
That's great.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
is in
so
the
much.
works though.
That's wonderful, thank you. I definitely look forward to having that available, thank you. I'm going to give a quote from Amelia, if that's all right.
Of course.
As we were sort of talking about the spirit of this thing, I really loved the way that Amelia put this. So this is an Amelia quote. There's no perfect answer, but overall we can keep working to make things better for artists. Breaking this down and sharing ideas is a start towards that. With that in mind, Levi, at local theater company, I know that you've been putting a lot of attention toward ways to keep people safer in rehearsals and in production. For example, I know there's a structured first rehearsal protocol and structured protocol for reporting issues that may arise, a structured protocol for addressing those issues if they arise. Acknowledging that no organization will get it right every time, can you share some of these ideas that maybe people could borrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try to do a lot of those things to make the entire process go smoother, essentially. Our first rehearsal protocols is when like every designer, every artist and whatnot will be in the room, and we just have like this packet that we go through, PDF shared, all that sort of things, and it's like everything that could possibly be addressed in a workplace for the most part, talking about like harassment and defining those things, because like, yes, some of those employees are 1099 and some of them are W-2, but that doesn't mean that they aren't allowed to have a safe workplace environment. So we go over a bunch of those things in EDI AP statements, just because sometimes when you work with an organization, specifically a theater company, we get so wrapped up in creating the art that we lose focus that it is still a job and you're allowed to be safe in that environment. But yeah, we have this wonderful packet that is available, and if y'all are interested, I can send it to you. It's pretty accessible in those ways. Local.
A thing that you do with that particular packet, I have found when I'm in that room very useful is going around and trading out who is reading a section so that it doesn't just become a monolith of text. So I think that's a really handy one to be able to employ in the rehearsal room.
Yeah, that totally works, and I honestly love it because it's not me talking for an hour at all of these artists. It gets like the directors involved, it gets the designers involved, it gets the actors involved. It allows all of us to like break up, not having to listen to one person's voice for an extended period of time. We also use a concern resolution pathway that I believe is in the Colorado standards,
Yes.
Which is really wonderful. And we have an anonymous reporting situation. That's a nice little template to use. And we also obviously have like local theater companies and equity theater house. So we have our like equity deputy and our non-equity deputy. And then we also assign somebody who's not those two people to be our concern resolution pathway deputy. And we have an anonymous reporting option, so that way when conflicts do arise in the collaboration room, because they happen, that people have multiple pathways. If you give people multiple options, they feel more comfortable voicing to someone rather than to no one. And it kind of addresses the like power hierarchy that does exist. Of if you are having an issue with your director and your director also happens to be like the concern resolution path person, then you also have the option to talk to the equity deputy, the non-equity deputy, and we always say that like you can talk to one of the producers, or we also have an arts liaison, which is one of our artistic directors for each project that stops in rehearsals, checks in with people via email or text every week, just to kind of get a temperature about what kind of things are happening, in case we as the producing company need to like step in and address something that might be inhibiting the creative process.
Do you have insight that you can share about how that anonymous reporting function works?
Yeah, absolutely. It's essentially just a thing that exists on our website, an anonymous reporting, and then it goes to a group of people.
So like a contact form on the website?
Yeah, a contact form on the website, that's an option, and it just like asks a few details about like what you're reporting, all of those sorts of things, so that we can then review that. And people at local theater company actually don't review it. It's other artists in the community, members of our board, members of our associate artist team, or people that we work with quite often who have training in EDIAB and accessibility. And it's always the people who review the anonymous report also vary in their diversity. So we have members, like at least one BIPOC person, at least one LGBTQ plus person, and then there's a few other demographic points that we like to hit to make sure that like whatever's being reviewed is seen from a diverse perspective in the anonymous reporting.
Thank you. Anybody have questions about that? Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, so it's a contact sheet on your website that is link unlisted just for artists in your productions, or is it a public link that people can find?
That's a great question. It might be a public link, but I don't actually think it is, because I don't think it's listed just anonymously on our website, but it's in our first product codes, but that's a good point. Maybe I should make that
A public
a public link.
Yeah, for the public to see.
Yeah, better is better.
My follow-up was also, we don't have a board, we're just a few people, and I'm bringing someone on who's volunteered to be sort of an HR contact, but they're just one person. So what we recommend for small companies that maybe can't have that same coalition.
Yeah, great question. I think it depends what you want from your HR person in terms of like, are they the point of contact for all conflict to arise? Or are they the person that's like the point of contact for hiring laws? Because HR people also deal with a lot of like payroll and possible like conflicts that arise or like harassment, like they're usually the go-to person. So it kind of depends what you want your HR person to be. In that way, I know that, I'm trying to think. Restate your question?
Yeah, we don't have
The resources.
board, associate artists, it's just a number of people that we have. So like we had a situation in a previous production that folks in the cast, they knew the producers that they could contact, but we weren't on the ground with them very often, so they didn't feel like they could come to us.
Gotcha.
So we're gonna have someone who is on the ground more often to be sort of the arts liaison. I'm gonna say that name.
Yeah, go for it.
I needed a title earlier. But yeah, if it's just one person, is that?
Do you use a non-equity deputy in your?
Not yet, but that's usually someone on the creative team.
Usually it's somebody in the cast.
In the cast.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry, I know there's been a rebrand, and it was a long time ago, so I should know it, but I don't. Colorado Standards for Theater,
Yeah.
is that the current name?
Yeah.
That is accessible for free online, and there's a breakdown there. And there's a lot of wisdom in this room too, so if anybody feels like, oh, I've encountered exactly this, please feel free. Like, Levi hasn't encountered exactly this.
Yeah, but we'll be providing, on the YouTube descriptions thing, we'll have a link to the CTG website where we're hosting it. CTG did not create the community standards, the Colorado Theater Standards, but we are currently hosting it on our website. So it should be available for anybody to see, but I'll make sure you guys get it tonight, and then anyone watching at home or elsewhere, you'll be able to access it too.
To answer your question, because you're a smaller company, you have your artistic liaison, right, your HR person. And what you really want is create multiple pathways. So maybe elect somebody as the non-equity deputy that's part of the artistic team or part of the design team. So that way you have two people from varying positions who are in the room creatively at different times, because usually designers are there at different times than like the actors are. And then you would have at least 3 different pathways. And then also just like making yourself available as the executive director of like emailing an introduction beyond the first rehearsal or beyond like stepping in once in a while is always nice. So that way they like put a face to who they're talking to. So that way they know that like they can come to you if something were to arise, right? The more options allows for people to be more comfortable to be able to talk about things that could be conflict oriented.
That's great, thank you. Yeah. I'm going to skip over you, Kaden, for just a moment, just because of sequence of events here, and ask Amelia this next question. As an intimacy coordinator in the theater, as well as an intimacy director in film and TV, do you have a set procedure, or is it more improvisatory?
In terms of people coming to me about things,
In terms of your work as an intimacy coordinator, like let's focus in on the theater side of
intimacy
it.
direction
Yeah.
then, for theater. Like, I'm not really sure about the question, so like.
So do you come into a rehearsal room and you always operate in a certain way, or are you?
Oh, yeah, I do have standards of how I work.
Mhm.
I like to be at the first rehearsal whenever possible. It's not a perfect world, but the earlier I can be a part of the process, the more I can do. And so if I'm able to be at the first rehearsal, I want to do that. I want to introduce myself. I want people to know who I am. I like to do a lot of pre-production work, meet with the director, meet with the creative team, meet with producers. Also like to meet with the actors if I can, either in advance or after the first rehearsal, individually. So there's not necessarily like a specific timeline. It's kind of how did I get brought into the production. But I do have a standard, like I meet with actors individually, generally on Zoom. It's not recorded. I keep notes for myself. I will stipulate what I need to share with the powers that be. I have a form I use. I ask questions like, do you have allergies to food or fabrics, latex, things that might be used possibly. And those are kind of things that like I will share with stage management. You know, if you have an allergy to something, they need to know if they haven't already got that information. If you have any physical injuries or things like that, that's something that like you need to tell me if you want me to share or not. I need to know for choreography. I also, with kind of circling back to Levi, with, you know, who do I designate to speak to if something comes up, is you can always come to me. I tell them, you always come to me, but I know I bop in, I bop out. If I can have an intimacy captain, go to the intimacy captain. Go to the people you're comfortable with too. Like, who are you confident speaking to? If you want to speak to the director, the stage manager, but please rope me into the conversation at some point so I'm aware of what's happening, because if I find out at a later point, it's more difficult for me to do my job, to be supportive. I'll do what I can, everything, you know, within my power, but I definitely want to be like, just informed as much as possible. I give people the options of like a Zoom call, a phone call, my email, however we can get in contact, let's get in contact. People in this room have worked with me, and so they know I'm you know, accessible as much as I can be humanly possible. But as an actor, as a person with a heavy degree of background in theater, I know how we get very close with each other. But the reminder is, it is a work environment. Yes, we can be friends outside the space, but try to remember professional boundaries when working, personal boundaries when we tap out, when we walk out, and just try to be mindful of those things. I know it was a lot I shared. It's a lot to share. I feel like I'm like fire hosing people, but you know, I do have a standard. It just depends on the project and the production. Everything is different, but I do want to meet with people individually, because I find when you get them where they don't feel like they have the influence of others, they might be a little more open to sharing something or asking a question or kind of letting you know. And sometimes it could be simple as just like a conversation of like, oh, well, do you mind if I just kind of tap that person in? We just have a quick chat. It might be just a miscommunication or something that you assumed that wasn't really there, and it's not a big deal, you know? Or if there's something more, then where can we go from here with that?
I've noticed you use that term, tap somebody in, a few times. Do you mean that literally?
no, I'm not gonna tap you with the fingers, but tap in, tag in, you know, just to kind of like raising your hand. You don't want to interrupt, you know, but just find a way of like just saying, hey, I want to just kind of stop, like pause this for a moment so I can bring myself into it without forcing myself into it.
That's great, thank you. Are there other things, you've already touched on this a bit, Amelia, but are there other things that you see from your work as an intimacy director and coordinator that for shows that don't have staged intimacy, that don't require hiring you?
Right.
Are there protocols that you do that you think could be useful in any setting?
Oh, yeah.
You could share?
Yeah, communication is one. You know, when I circle back to like Leah, you know, we have good intentions, but just try to lean into curiosities, talk to people. Definitely, even when it's not intimate, I know at productions, like, people have said, I don't like my ears touched, or if I know someone's coming from behind me, I'm more confident with that. We don't like to use the word comfortable, we want to be confident, because sometimes we do things that are uncomfortable. And so, language is important, but I think it's important to just kind of let people know in a context of like a scene or the overall show, what you need. You have to be your own advocate. And the other thing is I get is like, well, what if I don't know I have a boundary until I get there? Well, that's okay. You can always let people know, this is a new boundary that I've discovered, and I would like to let you know. And as the receiver of that information, let's not take it so personal, you know, or like, if it's okay, I'm not gonna touch you, but I know Leah better than I know Kaden. So like, Leah and I might have a different relationship around touch and comfort with each other versus Kaden and I just met tonight, you know, so we're not gonna have that same professional relationship. That doesn't mean I dislike Kaden, you know, but I don't expect that, you know, so I'm not gonna take it personal, like Kaden's like, no, don't touch my knee. Great, I won't touch your knee. But maybe over time, Kaden's like, by all means, touch my knee, you know, so just as the receiver, just try to be open that it may not be you. It's not always about you.
Are there things, Amelia, that producers and directors can do in the audition process that, like, what would you wish that people had done in advance to make
My
to
dream.
make the whole-
Yeah, my dream. Oh, you're speaking my love language now. I mean, again, I'm going to use things, I'm going to circle to other things that people have brought up. It's like Leah said, have someone else look at something. Have someone look at maybe your audition notice to see if there's any information needed or missing. You don't want to fire hose people with information, but maybe instead of always verbal directions, have directions ahead of time for people to read about what's the expectation of an audition or a callback. Because I find the more we give people information, especially in advance, the more prepared they are, the more confident they feel, because nerves are going to happen no matter what. But if we can kind of try to like take some of that away, it will make for so much better of a play space, a rehearsal space, an audition space. So even using language around content warnings, I know people are like, well, how do I do that? And not make it seem so loaded. Well, hire one of us, you know, hire a cultural consultant or an intimacy director and let us take a peek. You know, that's what we're trained for, and we can offer you language, and if there's further questions, people can clarify that. But definitely I think taking the loaded language out helps too.
That's great, thank you, Amelia. Questions about this for Amelia?
Is like intimacy courses, even if they're just workshops, is that something you'd like to see on resumes?
Oh, yeah, I think that's, I think that's,
Just like 2-day workshops? Or?
yeah, I think it's wonderful to see if an actor has training in that, because, or even people on production, that helps me know, like, we understand. I don't have to feel like I have to educate, you know, or I can ask you like, oh, well, who did you go through? And reading that tells me maybe like where your training came from, so maybe how they taught you. Because different intimacy groups speak it a little differently or define things a little bit differently. And I can only speak for myself. I've kind of trained with different places, so I know a little bit about each of them, but not all of them. But it just helps if I'm a little more familiar. It takes the guessing out. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
I just wanted to jump in real quick. One of the things that I've been noticing and having conversations with folks locally and nationally too is how do we navigate some of these digital rehearsals and digital interactions, going off of the assumption that not everyone is going to be in a physical rehearsal room together. There may be situations where the production is all digital, the production is partially digital, the meetings are there. So like understanding best practices with some of these tools that are very, very new for a lot of folks. And I'm constantly learning with my own work, like if someone has their camera off to receive information, it's not an affront to whoever is speaking. It really can be like, I sometimes need to close my eyes and listen, or I need to not have my brain thinking, what do I look like on camera amongst my peers, and be really self-conscious about it because my brain will go there, and it allows me to like just quiet things down a bit. I can take my notes, I can ask better questions. So I think that's a conversation point too when we're talking about, you know, the rehearsal process. When we're talking about intimacy coordination and direction, is that we have a lot more things that we're navigating now. So going off of the assumption that everything is going to be in a physical shared space is no longer the case. Good and bad. There's pros and cons to both, but I'm excited for how that's starting to develop and the language we're using to make that possible for folks so that it doesn't become this like stigmatization against folks in digital space when we're trying to make theater.
Thanks for raising that, Leah. Kevin, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's not directly on this topic, but it is about resumes / audition notices and expectations.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering what people, and I'm sure case by case, production by production, but references, use of references. We had a situation where if we had contacted past directors this person had worked with, they would have told us not to work with them, and it could have saved us a lot of trouble with production. And in situations like, we're trying to prevent something like that happening. So a matter of, if your company has a certain policy of, do you ask people to provide a name and a phone number of a professional or academic reference? Do you just cold reach out to people who are listed on the resume? And if there's certain recommendations on that front.
Levi, that might be a you question, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think we have anything set, like, local theater company doesn't have anything that's like set in stone, but we do often, like, a reference isn't always a thing, but we do ask around. A lot of people that have worked with local have been in Colorado for a hot second. So usually when you see on somebody's like resume, like an actor for instance, that they've worked with, like let's say they were directed by Mayor in a past production. I know Mayor, so I'm just gonna give Mayor a text or send a phone call and be like, hey, like, do you remember this actor? Were they great? How did you enjoy working with them? And then Mayor's probably gonna be honest with me, so that way I hire the best person for my production. And the theater community is pretty small, so if you ask around, I don't think that's necessarily bad. And that's what I also learned in school was like, if you put somebody on your resume, it means that they're gonna look at those directors. So I don't think it's necessarily bad to ask for that, ask for a preference or whatnot, or just go off their resumes if they hand one to you. It's always better to ask around so that you know what you're expecting. I have designers and actors that I've worked with before also that, like, you just learn things about them when you've worked with them multiple times. And everybody has different personality and works differently together. And people collaborate better with different people just because personalities sometimes work really well together and some personalities don't. Like you don't want a bunch of people who are super serious all the time working on the same production. You want some very serious get-her-dones people, and you want some people who are going to lighten up the room. So that way it makes the collaboration better when you're creating a room of collaborators with actors, designers, production team, all that kind of jazz. So I don't know if we have a rule set in stone, but definitely ask around to figure it out, because you don't want to people don't want to hire people who aren't fun to work with.
Anybody else in the room regularly hire directors that have yeah, Megan?
I just wanted to share that we often tell our students that you should not burn any bridges, intentional or otherwise, because you never know when the person you're in an acting scene with will be the person, Levi, Caden, to hire you in a year or two, right? So we do a lot of asking around and quiet personal reference checks as well.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I we don't want to scare people away from auditioning, so I don't want to ask too much for phone numbers and things, but it is a small community, so.
Yeah. Amelia, you wanted to
I'm
add?
gonna add to that because I was an acting coach. So I saw one thing, and I don't know if it's your company or somebody, but I saw a while back that like there was a company adding like 15-minute interviews to actors, and people thought, well, that's kind of odd. But honestly, I think this would be good because, like you said, it's about personalities. I see nothing wrong with that. You know, I use Calendly. I think a 15-minute Zoom call. You know, if you don't want to do it in person, you want to do something either before or after the audition, just to, you know, here's a block of time that we have available. We would love to talk to you, but maybe keep it as an option, maybe not necessarily a requirement, unless it feels like it needs to be required. So try to think about accessibility and time frame, you know, like maybe do that in advance so people have time to do that. But also, again, I'm speaking now as an intimacy director, I would kind of want, and as an acting coach actually, I would say informed consent. Just allowing people to know, hi, whether you include the director's name or not, because like you say, the resume tells us what company you work with. We are going to contact possible people randomly on your resume. And just let folks know, it's not because we don't trust you, but we're a new company. We really just want to kind of check in and know a little more about you. How did they like working with you, etc. Because I tell actors all the time, interview these companies. Like, do your homework, because you're right, it's a small community. We all talk to each other. So don't just jump in. Like, do your homework as well. But I see no problem with the powers that be as long as you just kind of let folks know in advance so that they don't get scared and they find out later and it just feels a little icky. So I think if you just kind of let, hey, this isn't going to have anything to do with your performance, but we just really would love to, you know a little more about you, or even a newer actor, like, I see you worked with this teacher. I saw you took a class here. Could I just check in with the teacher and just say, hey, how were they in class? You know, where do you feel like they are kind of on their journey? You know, like, could they handle a role this, with this heaviness, you know, this amount of lines and weight? Or do you feel like they need a little more under their belt?
Thank you, Amelia. Does that give you what you were, this conglomerate, does it give you what you were looking for, Kevin?
Yeah, and I especially appreciate the expectations of what, like, letting people know what to expect out of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, I thought about the I met with our director today, and she said, yeah, we'll do interviews, but she didn't mention how or when. And it's not on our casting call, but now we think I want to add.
I think that's great. Yeah, it's great. It takes the pressure off and the weird jittery feeling of like, have I impressed them enough? Like, yeah, and the power dynamics too. It just makes it a little bit more balanced.
Great. I want to get Caden in here.
Yay,
Caden as a fight director. I'll invite the same question to you as I had for Amelia from the perspective of a fight director. So what ideas from your practice might people be able to borrow, even if there's no stage violence in a show?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest ones, which will also come up a lot whenever you talk about accessibility or research it, is never assume what someone can or cannot do. Let them speak for themselves in that regard. And like, that's not even just in terms of physical movement or ability, that's also in terms of like, anything. Of like, if someone is presenting themselves as having an interest in a role and you have a reason to believe that they understand the expectations of that role, whether that role be on stage or off stage, but they understand that the general expectation that you have for that, and they're saying, I would like to be considered, you should believe them to that on that first level of like not immediately discarding them for whatever preconception that may be in your mind of no one knows you better than yourself, and that is true of the people that are presenting themselves in their room. So I think that's something big with fights, especially of I never know what kind of movement training someone's had unless maybe I get the opportunity to look at their resume, which I'm not usually in the room for casting decisions as the fighting person. So I just sort of taking that value.
I feel like I had something else prepared and it has since left my brain.
Give me a moment to see.
Yeah. Yeah, as we're letting the muse come to Kaden, anybody have a question about what Kaden just mentioned?
I think you should definitely be in on the, looking at the resumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely can be useful. In an ideal world, I would definitely be able to have a chance to look at folks' resumes just to know. And I am totally going to steal what Amelia said of
I agree to you.
reaching out to actors prior to first rehearsals in terms of like just letting them know, like, hey, here's who I am, and please let me know ahead of time if you do. Yeah, like I've had actors reach out to me prior to first rehearsals in different rooms saying, you know, hey, just so you know, this is something that is like an access need that may or may not come up while we're doing combat. But I love the idea that I can just be the first one to cross that bridge instead of relying on the actors to self-advocate. Self-advocacy is such an important skill for everyone to learn and have, and even those who are great at it are not going to be excellent all of the time. So finding the opportunities to cross that bridge first, or just to let other people know that they're welcome to cross the bridge with you, if we're going with that metaphor, is just an excellent way to invite people into the room with you, so that way we can truly collaborate in the art that we love to do. Because I think everyone on this stage very much so agrees that collaboration produces better work
The
than,
best.
yeah, what the opposite of collaboration is.
Did the other thing come back to you yet?
No.
Let's do this. It's great timing for a bio break.
Yeah.
In that time, be thinking if you have questions, again, it's fine if you don't. Maybe a bio break is exactly what we need for that thing to drop in, so there'll be an opportunity to revisit that after, let's say, like 5 minutes. Yeah, it's 8:06, so 8:11.
Yeah.
See you back here at 8:11?
Yeah, thank
Great,
you.
thanks everybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the water, restrooms.
I do want to.
Comes back, we're gonna definitely make sure that there's space for that. Oh, go ahead, Amelia.
Well, I know with intimacy, we do not ask people to draw from their lived experiences. Do you do the same in fight?
That brought me the connection.
Whoa!
Yes,
I
love it. The answer is no, because I think fight choreography is focuses so much more on the physical that I don't think I've ever given direction in terms of the acting component to it, other than like remember to breathe. And what that brought me to is that when fighting, it's an incredibly emotionally heightened point of anything. When to get to a point where you're going to enact physical violence onto someone is not just a casual Tuesday, even on stage. And so it actually makes me think more about intimacy practices of de-rolling after the process. And I think de-rolling can and should happen even in places that don't have intimacy and don't have fights.
If people aren't familiar with that term, can you unpack that for us?
I would love to. De-rolling is a process of really just reminding yourself that you are not the character and you are not going through the same experiences as the character. They feel very real when you're on stage, as they should, when you're being acted in the moment as an actor. And de-rolling is just a process of sort of reminding yourself and really reminding your brain that those experiences are not your own, and that you are in a place where you are physically or emotionally safe, or even acknowledging it's really difficult for me to separate the two right now. And so knowing then how to carry yourself into the next part of your life.
Do you have some examples of how one might de-roll?
Yes. Because you're making eye contact with me, something tells me that you're willing to be my buddy on this one. the classic example is just to be Romeo and Juliet here, and we've just finished the play, and it was so tragic. If you don't know the plot of Romeo and Juliet, I'm so sorry to spoil it.
Oh, man.
It had 400 years, it's okay. They are lovers who tragically die at the end. So if we're at the end of the show, I usually like to do it as the process of saying I, as the character, what I am feeling, especially about my scene partner, and then afterwards I will go I, as the actor, what I did as techniques as an actor to get myself there. So if I am Juliet, I'll be Juliet tonight.
Oh, man.
Okay, I'll be Romeo. I'll be Romeo.
Yes.
I love to be Romeo, actually. I was trying. I, as Romeo,
Fell in love with me.
fell in love with you, and
You, Juliet.
Do you want to do you, Juliet? How you feel?
I got you. I, as Juliet tonight, went on an adventure and fell in love with you, and then decided that you were more worth it than my life and my family, and
Yes.
then committed suicide. But I, as Levi, enjoy you as my best friend Kaden, and let's go get some French fries after this.
Yeah,
This is
and
great.
I, as Kaden, made a new substitution on stage tonight. That is why I was a little more maybe emotionally present emotionally differently tonight. But I know that you're my best friend, and I definitely don't want to be in love with you in our real life. And then a round of applause. And that was a D-roll, just as act of saying I as the actor and feeling, thinking X, Y, Z, and I as a human actor, a real person, did ABC to get to X, Y, Z.
And is that something as a fight director, as an intimacy director, do you introduce that into the culture of the rehearsal and performance?
Yes, yes, very much so, because even with fight, like Kate said, it's heightened, it's emotional, the mind and the body are not gonna play nice with each other, and especially in intimacy, the body might have a reaction, you know, and that's okay, because it's gonna be like, oh, that feels great, and your mind's like, but we're just acting, the body's like, oh, hell no, we're not acting. And so it helps you also, like Kate said, kind of come back into yourself, come into your own being, and talk about what you did as the character, and how the character may have felt, and then of course as yourself, so that you can go live your life, go home safely. That's what our jobs we want to do. We want to send people home safely, and you also remember you're in a container, and when you leave the container when the show closes, how many times I've had this conversation even before I became an intimacy director, especially with young ladies that fall in love with their leading man. I say, give it a week. Give it a week and you will love your boyfriend again, I promise. Just give it a week away from them, because we're seeing each other, you know, a lot and spending a lot of intimate time with each other. And there's that closeness because we are supporting one another. Acting is intimate. I saw an acting teacher kind of get slammed about it, but it's like, even without the physicality, it's intimate, it's emotional, it's a connection. It's eventually a trust with one another. So I loved what you two did because it was nice, you're friends, and you even, you know, spoke honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. What questions do y'all have, if you have any? Or comments? We can mine the wisdom in this room.
I was just gonna say that I have like several SAFD certifications. I've never been able to do that, I've never had the opportunity to do it on stage.
Yeah, the time's coming.
Yeah.
Time's coming.
That's saying, go buy a sword, go find a backyard,
Yeah.
have a good time with your best friends. Highly recommend it as someone who's done that once or twice, if you can.
I'm also very certified in stage combat and will probably never perform with stage combat.
Yeah.
But it's a good time. It's a fun time to like swing around swords.
Yeah, it's pretty intensive to do that too.
Yeah.
Our classes would take 6 weeks, and we would have to work outside, we'd have to practice in the class, so just to get one scene, one like 2-minute scene.
Mhm.
It's a lot of-
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
If nothing else is brewing, now this is not your last opportunity. But I'll go back to one of these questions here. And I invite you all to participate in this discussion as well, but recognizing that we're lacking a vast diversity of identities here, of disabilities, of more racial diversity. I ask, how can leaders best address the needs of the individuals while pursuing an artistic vision? I mean, we've been circling around this already, right? But is there anything that we haven't already talked about that occurs to you?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, education, self-education, but also, have people in your Rolodex that you can reach out to and hire and pay them for their services to ask support. And especially in this day and age of digital technology with Zoom, we can Zoom people in that maybe not live in our physical space, but maybe are elsewhere that can tag in, I know I love that word, and support your production team, your actors, whoever, and, don't make it a one-time thing. This is part of my practice, is I tell people until we close, I'm here for you. Come to me anytime, I'm here for you. Like, my job does not end until we finish the production. So try to, have that open-ended conversation and, like I say, pay them for their work, pay them for what they have.
Thanks, Nelia. Levi, you had something as well?
Yeah, I would say that, like, in arts administration or in, like, the leadership of the arts, a lot of the leaders in the theater world generally, I don't want to say like homogeneous, but there's not a lot of diversity in the upper leadership of arts education. So I would say providing pathways for people with marginalized identities to get there, I think is honestly like what time period we're currently in, of like, there's only so much that one person's lived experience can learn about. I'm not saying that like white women or white men can't figure it out and like obviously be supportive and accessible and giving power to those people, but also there's a way to provide insight that a diverse community in arts leadership could provide. And that's how we better address some of the like systematic power differences and allow art spaces to be more accessible. And I think it's honestly just asking the question and listening. Because if you're not going to listen to somebody who's raising a question or raising an awareness or raising a conflict, then nothing's going to change. So being willing to listen and being willing to like make that change and put in the time and effort is really going to be huge in making the arts more accessible and more effective. Like, we just have to listen to like younger generations, more diverse people about being of how to make theater a better space, because that's ultimately what we want. And if we're not working together to do that, then it's just going to take longer.
Thank you, Levi. One of the common themes I'm hearing from everybody tonight is treating individuals as individuals and not making assumptions based on identity, on role, having conversations, listening. And I'll drop in here an experience I had directing for Family Theater Company in the spring. They have a people first sort of mantra that if somebody, if there's a snowstorm and it's not going to be safe for somebody to get their wheelchair out to the corner to get accessorized, they're not going to rehearsal and there's not going to be any sort of, punitive action to that. And you know who benefited maybe most from that? Me. I don't identify as having a disability, but I needed space at that moment. My mother needed care. At one point I got COVID. I hugely benefited from the people first ethos of that company. And if you are somebody who has an interest in learning more about accessibility in theater, highly recommend volunteering there. It's a great way. They're doing so much right. It's a great way to learn more. What else? What's the wisdom in this room around this? What do you think? How do we how do we balance the needs of artistic vision and individuals? Is there anything that we didn't say?
I think about the unsiloing of our sector too. I work with a lot of people outside of the arts world in my work that I do, but also in the advocacy I do. And I think that's one of the hardest things we grapple with is like, how do we share this magical thing that we experience? How do you articulate that to someone who either hasn't been in a process like that for a long time or actively is choosing not to engage? Someone who's like, I don't know anything about theater. I don't know anything about this stuff. Maybe they come to plays and musicals, but in a very subscribed way. They come and they sit, and then they leave, and they're like, wasn't that fun for me? So I just take whatever opportunities I have to be curious and ask questions of people not in theater land, and find connections. And then we have really wonderful conversations, and then it gets them curious, asking about what it is I do when I talk about theater things. And that goes for people in policy land too. You'd be surprised the amount of people who have a real deep love and affection and care for the arts, but they haven't figured out a way to like make it work with their peers to explain why it's so important. So that's what we all can do too, is, you know, not only just like cycling within our own selves, but like go out and experience new activities, things that are not in your wheelhouse, other people's lived experiences, but not as a tourist. Like, don't go into an experience being like, wasn't that so great and wonderful for me? Go in knowing that it might be a little uncomfortable and they're not gonna necessarily, the best example I can think of is going to multilingual theater, all different types of languages. I don't go in with the expectation that it's gonna be translated to English. I don't go in with the expectation that anyone's gonna speak to me in English. So I want to know that if I'm going to a performance like that, I really am taking it in, and we do get to the core of like what it is to be a performer or a designer, and like how theater can be a more universal language other than the words spoken, or if you're doing various kinds of sign language, because it's not all American Sign Language. There's a sign language all over the world.
And American Sign Language has subdivisions as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So taking your ego out of that and putting yourself in a situation where you can just, you can sit with it, you can feel it, and more often than not, I understand all the intentions very, very well. I don't need it to be directly translated for me. And I try to bring friends along who are like, that seems scary to me, I don't know if I'm gonna understand or like it. I'm like, you may not like it, but I think you're gonna understand it a lot more than you imagine you would. It's powerful stuff. So yeah, just, I'd say get out there and try new things, try different things. And that informs your artistic practice and your design work and your arts administration work too. You just become a better human being overall. And it just makes, it takes away some of the like lofty mystery, or unfortunately people believing like it's just a fun hobby and it has nothing to do with the real world. I'm like, this is as real as it gets. We're the real people doing the real stuff to help make things real for others who aren't in those rehearsal rooms with us. We're trying to give them a little taste of it. So yeah, the unsiloing of people in the arts is something that's really important to me.
Thank you, Leah. I have a, we'll wrap it up here pretty quickly. But I just want to do a last sort of survey here before I ask the last question. Is there anything on your minds that we didn't address that you want to make sure that gets in here?
To re-answer your question,
Yeah.
I have two other thoughts. I love the people first, and it's definitely the most important thing with theater. Of if people don't feel comfortable in a space, they're not going to do their job well. So if people need a day off, if people need an access reason, whatever, if you do that for them as an artist and as a person, they'll show up better the next day. And it's okay to have that space. Like, something that we said all the time in undergrad is like, we play pretend for a living, it's not that serious. Like, it'll be okay if you missed a day of rehearsal. It'll be okay if you miss a week of rehearsal. We will figure it out. And something that I love doing as like a producer and an arts administrator, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need to take a week off for this family life reason, we get to go, okay, great, I'll figure out how to make that happen for you because you need that time off because you're a human being. Like, we play pretend for a living, it's not that serious. Yeah, those to answer your question about artistic vision, of like, people are more important than the artistic vision, and the artistic vision can't happen without people.
100%.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, 'cause I was thinking about like when people get sick,
Mm-hmm.
has there been much done with like, FaceTime or Teams
Yes.
rehearsals? that-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good brainstorm, Kevin. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I was at Family, first up, they fund a longer than typical rehearsal period so that there's an opportunity for, some of this. But it was, like the snowy time of the year, and so there was and the COVID-y and the flu-y time of the year, so there was a lot of that. And yeah, we frequently had people on a little rolling cart. They were on the screen on Zoom, and the stage manager or the accommodations manager would roll them to their spot, and it was all right.
All right.
It was all right. I saw some nods here.
I wanted to acknowledge something, we didn't get a chance to talk about it earlier, but Amelia wrote a really great post on her website about how as an actor you navigate illness, but it applies to everybody. So I wanted you, if you wanted to speak on it, I thought it was really helpful for me to just have a really good reminder.
Here's my email that I wrote 3 weeks ago, but thanks.
But yeah.
It went out today. Thanks for automation.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I wrote an email, I was talking about acting while sick, and it's like, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not gonna get you the tips, but, I can pull it out, but I'll try to see what I can remember from memory. But it's like communication, either you or someone for you communicate and let people know, I'm sick, if you have a rough timeline, share that. Another thing I said was auditioning, just take a break. Just take a break from auditioning. Even if you're I'm gonna be better down the road, it's okay to take the break and not audition for that show. But even with taking the break, I tell people do whatever you want. I'm a little feisty on this one, but do whatever you want during that time. And I'm gonna kind of share a brief lived experience with myself. Was my son had pneumonia for 3 weeks, and it was really, really, really tough. And luckily I had a ton of content, so I'm posting nothing's wrong in my life, but at the same time my friends are kind of you okay? Oh great, I'm in the hospital, I'm posting content. But I didn't worry about anything else. I was up to date with my clients who I was working with. I worked things around with, luckily I could Zoom with them when I could. But I didn't worry about reading the books or doing the things. I had to give myself a mental break from it all. It's opportunity's always gonna be there, but your health is more important. And even what Levi said, just take what you need and tell people. I think that's the key thing is just share. You can share what you want to share, but it's important, I think, to communicate and just let folks know, I have to take a week off and give just, I want to say bare minimum, but you don't have to share beyond. I think that's the thing about actors that bothers me is we're so, especially actors, we're so trained about share and justify and do these things. And as an intimacy director, I'm I don't need to know why. It's not because I don't care. I love and care about people, but it's I don't need that information to do my job. I just need to know where can we go from here and how can I support you best. And so that's the thing I really would love people to take away is just communicate, share what you need to share, but don't feel like you have to justify your reasons. We don't need that.
And I love when my producing peers set a template so that can come about.
Yeah.
So that it's stipulated from the beginning, this is what we will communicate to you if on our end if we're dealing with illnesses or family, caregiving is a major component of this, and vice versa. So they have it worked out with their design crew, volunteers, front of house management, everybody is involved, knowing that level of care, the people first is the threshold, that is the baseline, so that it is not left up to an individual to have to be can I be myself in this space? If we tell you it's okay to be yourself, it's okay to be yourself. But, be careful that you don't actually have an underlying meaning if it's actually not.
Right.
I've seen that. People had a beautiful message and then reality came in and that did not follow through. And they're not people I work with anymore. That's just the reality, and they're not people I recommend people work with. Because I knew that what was on paper, what was public, was not what was handled in private.
Yeah.
So.
Kaden, I saw you have something to say a little bit ago. Is it still relevant? Do you want to get it out there?
Oh, it was just a small addition to Levi's of we play pretend for a living, of we make believe for a living. It's not that serious. Is that it's very serious to us in our hearts and the things that we want to do. And that does not, and it is very important in the world. And nobody's gonna die if you have to cancel a night of performances. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like it is okay
Yeah.
to step away from our work. So that was the thing I wanted to add on with that. Of like, yes, you can care and you should care about the art you're doing, and it is not always needed to be in the number one priority slot in your life. That's what we mean when we say we play pretend for a living. Like, I have a lot of fun, and some of the issues that come up, they're just not that serious. You know, where you can walk away and go, it's not that serious. I'm just trying to play pretend, and I'm trying to play pretend exceptionally well. And you go, okay, that's the life I live. That's a pretty good life to live.
That's great.
That's all.
As we wrap up here, I just want to have each of you say your names and spell your names in case
that'd be great.
people don't know how to find you, because I imagine you are all Googleable if we have the spelling of your name, yeah? And any other information that you might want to share about if people would like to follow up in conversation with you, how they might find you, yeah? Levi?
Great. My name is Levi Franklin, spelled L-E-V-I, space Franklin, spelled F-R-A-N-K-L-I-N. And I work for a local theater company, local spelled L-O-C-A-L, theater spelled the wrong way, T-H-E-A-T-E-R.
Oh!
They're all the okay
Oh.
way.
Company,
You got me on that one.
C-O-M-P-A-N.
Oh.
I didn't name it.
They're all good. E-R and R.
I'm Caden Pazzo, that's C-A-D-E-N, last name P-A-Z-O. My Instagram and email are both at Caden Pazzo, so I'm really easy to find. If you have questions related to this, like, please feel free to email me. I'm usually pretty good at it, and if I'm not, give me a nudge, because I need a nudge every now and again. So, yeah.
Okay, Amelia Morse, A-M-E-L-I-A-M-O-R-S-E. I'm on Facebook. I have 2 Instagram accounts. You can follow them both. One is Acting Coach Amelia. The other one is Intimacy_Amelia. And just go to ameliamorse.com. You don't have to do the Morse Actor Studio because I know it's big and long, but Amelia Morse will direct you to my other website. And you can contact me on social media or email. And it goes to my phone, so I'll answer in real time because high function anxiety. I can't, say to my friends, it's like, don't text her at 2 a.m., she'll respond. I will respond, because I'll forget if I don't.
I totally get you. So yeah, Leah Kozach, L-I-A-K-O-Z-A-T-C-H. I feel like I'm doing like a telemarketer call. But I've just gotten so good at having to spell it out loud because no one can spell it. I have a Facebook account, I have Instagram, I am on X, but it's purely for journalists and for theater stuff. I'm not posting stuff usually, I'm taking stuff in. Also on Threads, but not as active on that. Email-wise, my email address is actually on the CTG website. All of our board members have email addresses, so if you ever need to reach out to anyone at CTG, we have that, as well as our 2 contract workers. So if you have a question specific about the website or about the Henry Awards or a number of things, there are people there. And I will offer that everyone who's here, their information will be on the slide that will get sent out and on the description link. So no worries if you misheard something or whatever, we've got you covered. You'll be able to get in contact with anybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you, Mary.
Leah, for presenting and for organizing this panel. Thanks, CTG, for hosting. Thank you for, which university should I be appreciating for this? For Metro State?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you,
Correct.
Metro State.
Yes.
And thanks, everybody, for being here participating.